And the shul that I was serving could only afford me. So because of that, it wasn't because I was such a high-priced item. But because of that, every Shabbat, I did everything. I was what we referred to back in the day as a kolbo, somebody who did everything. They did the Torah reading. Thankfully, I didn't have to be a kolbo today because we had Nora, we have Rabbi Berman. But pretty soon you'll be sick of hearing me this week. But that's okay, because I'll be back next week. This has been a tragic week in Israel on so many levels. Two brothers, Hillel and Yigal Yaniv, 21 years old and 19 respectively, were killed as they drove through the West Bank town of Churara last Sunday. They were shot. And their funeral processions from the Har Bracha settlement where they lived, and then they were laid to rest in Mount Herzl's military cemetery in Jerusalem. And of course, as often is the case in such tragic events, there were thousands of mourners who were there. And the parents of these two brothers spoke after the terrorist attack. On Monday after the funeral, they said having to bury children is a horrific thing to do. But of course, they pleaded for unity and calm among the people of Israel as they faced them in the Jerusalem funeral. Words cannot describe the disaster, their mother, Esti Yaniv, said at a press conference ahead of the funeral. Instead of accompanying children to the wedding canopy, we need to bury them. And then she called for calm amongst the people of Israel, who are deeply divided about the government and its policies. People, we are brothers, she said. We love the country. We love the army and we want security, she continued. The army is everyone's and we should use it. We shouldn't use it for anything political. And the story rings home for me because I was speaking with my daughter just yesterday, and she told me that she was walking along the street and an Israeli spit on her friend and said, "Aren't you embarrassed to wear the uniform of the state of Israel?" At the funeral in Jerusalem, Chief Rabbi David Lau delivered one of the eulogies. And he said, when we are here next to a fresh grave, how can we possibly be comforted? Rabbi Eliezer Malamed, the chief rabbi of Har Bracha, the settlement from which these boys came and from where the family lives, also spoke at the funeral, decrying how Hillel and Yigal, full of vigor and vitality, were killed the Kiddushat Hashem, for the sanctification of God. While their lives were cut short, Malamed added, in the real world, they are very much alive, and the girls and boys who play and are happy around this country are able to do so because of their strength. And then Malamed said that the fate of the Jewish people has always been to carry the flag of morality and to bring blessing to the world. We did not return to our land in order to dispossess Arabs of their property, but to add blessing to the world. He adds a clear reference, of course, to the riots that would ensue in Churara in the next couple of days. He said, whoever rises up against us will fight them and will win, but within the confines of the law. It will be done through the army and through police, not through renegade behavior. The first verse in this morning's Parsha says, you shall further instruct the Israelites to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting, for kindling lamps regularly. Of course, the Midrash focuses on the word zach lama'or, the idea that this is taken from beaten olives. Because the Midrash says that the Jewish people have been beaten down, and it's through that beaten downness that we become purified. It's the way impurities are removed from the world. And like the oil, the Midrash suggests that the Jewish people have also been beaten down. We have been oppressed and we have been expelled. And then the Midrash says that we're better for it, not worse. We grow, says the Midrash, in understanding and insight, because we know what it feels like to suffer. I'm not sure it's necessarily true that every person who suffers comes away from it feeling as though they have greater wisdom. And so rather, I'd like to focus on a comment by the Orach Chaim. Rabbi Chaim Imad Atar teaches something incredibly interesting on this same pasuk. Bizman hagalut nichshach lama'or halivana shenikrat hama'or katan. He says when the Jewish people are in the diaspora, we rely on a very small light. It's the light that comes from the moon, not the sun. And therefore we need extra light, he says. Because this smaller light that we continue to add to the world makes for a bigger light. During exile, the Jewish people are perceived as dwelling in darkness, except for just the sliver of light that comes from the moon. That's why God commanded that the Jewish people should aspire that the olive oil for the lampstand, the tabernacle, should provide especially potent light. The Orach Chaim says, in very simple terms, there are times where it's hard to see the light, and therefore we must use whatever spark there is to create greater light. And there are times when our light burns bright. The Jewish people are triumphant and joyful. We find ourselves amidst that as we approach the holiday of Purim, in which it seemed as though our light would go out by the hands of Haman. But in fact, we were able to emerge triumphant and joyful, bringing greater light to the world. The Orach Chaim is teaching that there is great holiness in the land of Israel, but we can never lose that sense of light that the geography ought to provide for us. It's not about where you are, I believe. It's about the circumstances in which you find yourself that demand greater light. No doubt there is a voice in our tradition that seeks to punish those who seek to do our harm. There are those who lie in ambush. There are those who shoot to kill two brothers as they drive by. There's no question that there are those who are the descendants morally of Haman. There is no doubt there are those in the world who seek to do us harm. And so the Parsha seems to indicate late in the Maftir, Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you. They lied in wait to ambush you just like these two brothers. They cut you down when you were tired and afraid. So remember what evil people can do. But that cannot be our approach to living amongst hostile neighbors. Rather, we have to look to a verse that finds itself in the middle of this morning's parsha. V'hayu al Aaron v'al banav bevoam el ohel moed begishtam el hamizbeach l'sharet b'kodesh v'lo yisu avon v'ametu chukat olam l'zara ad olam. Aaron is instructed in the middle of this morning's parsha that when he and his sons go into the tabernacle, into the tent of meeting, and they approach the work of the sanctuary, that they ought to steer clear of sin, because then they will incur punishment and die. You know the phrase that we find often in Avot de Rabbi Natan, Hillel v'Shamai kiblu mehem, Hillel omer, Havei mitalmidav shel Aharon. Hillel teaches us, be like the children of Aaron. Ohev shalom, v'rodev shalom, ohevet habriot umkarvan laTorah. Says, you want to be like Aaron? Don't be like the Jews who sought so much destruction in Churara this past week. Be like children of Aaron who love peace, who pursue peace, who draw people closer rather than driving them further away. It's been a painful week, not just for our brothers and sisters in the land of Israel, but for their neighbors as well. It's not just been a painful week for our brothers and sisters and their neighbors in the land of Israel. This week has been painful for us as well here in the United States, as last week there was a call for a national day of hatred, to which we responded, Ohev shalom v'rodev shalom, we're going to have a Shabbat of love instead. So, one more story. According to the IDF, multiple gunmen arrived by car on the Route 90 highway in Israel, close to the Nevo military base, and they opened fire on an Israeli-owned vehicle. The terrorists then continued driving and opened fire on another car near Beit Ha'arava Junction before continuing shootings at a third car. And then, of course, you know that an Israeli-American was killed. Ilan Genalis was also killed this week. Strangely enough, he was from Hartford, Connecticut, where my parents are from. It's hard to meet anger and violence with love and peace. It's hard to be good in the face of evil. But nobody said that being Jewish was going to be easy. It's easy to meet pain and anguish with hatred and violence. It's hard to remain hopeful and bring light to the world in the face of such darkness. This week, we witnessed pogroms, both by Jews and by Arabs. It has been a dark week. Our job in the face of that is to bring light and love and joy and kindness, of generosity and sincerity, and bring healing to a fractured world. I'm grateful for Tzahal, for the state of Israel's defense forces. I'm proud to be the father of a soldier. I trust in their hands, not in renegade people who choose to take law into their own hands. May there be peace in the land of Israel and peace throughout the world. B'mheira b'yameinu, speedily in our day. And let us say Amen. Amen. Page 184, Chatzi Kaddish, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah v'yalem ad yivrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael b'gala u'v'zman kariv v'yimeru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach Leolam leomei omayo yitbar.